this announcement. Why don't I do that first while we're waiting for them to pop in? So we've been asked to read this announcement before every meeting to kind of set the tone as to how we will be proceeding. So before we begin, I wanted to remind the committee and members of the public to follow our code of conduct at meetings. This includes commenting on the specific agenda item only and addressing the full body. Public speakers will not engage in a conversation with the council member or staff. All members of the committee, staff, and the public are expected to refrain from abusive language. Repeated failure to comply with the code of conduct, which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, may result in removal from the meeting. This meeting of the CED will now come to order. And we have a quorum. So will the clerk please take the roll?
Carrasco?
Here.
Perales?
Here.
Mahan? Esparza? Foley?
Here.
Thank you.
Great. So let's move into the agenda. We do have some big items today. The first, I'm going to skip over the review of the work plan. We don't have anything to review. The one item we did have has been deferred dropped per the Rules Committee. So I'll jump right into the committee reports, starting by introducing Rosalind Huey, who has an announcement.
Great.
Or an introduction.
Thank you so much, Chair Foley, and good afternoon, members of the committee and members of the public. Staff does have a special announcement we want to share with the committee, and I'm just going to turn it over to Nancy Klein to do that.
Thank you very much, Chair and members of the CDC committee. I just wanted to say that after a full recruitment process for the Deputy Director of Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs, Blage Zalalic has been appointed as the Deputy Director. And I just wanted to thank you. Yes, we're very excited about it. There are a few things too that I just wanted to highlight that maybe everybody didn't know about Blage that's fun to mention here. One, of course, is mentioning the depth and breadth of the role that she stepped into as acting in terms of covering and managing small business recovery, development facilitation, housing catalyst, assistance to small business that we would normally do, as well as larger business, and just a ton of work, which you will hear reflected here in the depth and breadth of the reports you're going to have from OEDCA. And that prior to that, for 6 years, Blage was the downtown manager and coordinated the vision and strategy for downtown. Prior to that, from 2004 until joining the city, she was deputy director of the San Jose Downtown Association and led, amongst other things, the development of the Downtown Property-Based Improvement District, which it's all her good or it's all her force, not fault, not all of it, but she was a very big force in that. And I don't think many people know that. And lastly, Blage played college basketball, which I thought was awesome at University of California, Davis. So she was a very good athlete. And that Blage also has an MBA in finance and marketing from the University of San Francisco, McLaren. So Blage couldn't be more excited and pleased, and thank you.
Congratulations, Blage. That's wonderful. So we'll be seeing you around more regularly at these meetings. That's great. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your appointment. So why don't you just move into the downtown progress report?
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Chair Foley. Good afternoon, everybody, committee members. Blage Zalalic, Deputy Director for Business Development for the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. And I'm here this afternoon to present the 2021-2022 Downtown Progress Report. Vibrant and successful city centers include 4 key components: work environment, urban living, arts and entertainment, and shopping and dining, all connected through the public realm. This is how I've organized the Downtown Progress Report over the last 5 years and have continued to do so again this year. Here's a map of the downtown growth area as defined by the city's general plan. And although San Jose State University has their own planning and permitting authority on site, we very much consider them an integral part of downtown's evolution and growth. It was great to see the 36,000 students and 4,000 faculty and staff return to campus, shopping and eating in downtown businesses, and filling residence halls to capacity. The past 12 months have continued to be a struggle for downtown as the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic persist. Prolonged work from home, rising costs of goods, depleted supply chain issues, and labor shortages. The level of activity on downtown streets has picked up significantly over the past 12 months, but remains nowhere near the activity pre-pandemic. The industries that drove the downtown economy, commercial office, conventions, hotel business, bars and nightclubs, arts and culture, and events at the SAP Arena limp toward recovery at varying rates. Two clear indicators of the effect of the pandemic on the downtown landscape are sales tax collection and parking data. When comparing 2020 and 2021 sales tax collections, the overall drop in citywide collections is a mere 1%. However, the decline in collections within the downtown growth area is significantly higher at 38.5%. Additionally, when looking at the day-to-day metric of on-street and parking garage utilization rates and revenue, occupancy and revenue numbers have only recovered 50 to 75% of what they were pre-pandemic. In the work environment, there are approximately 3,000 businesses in the downtown growth area, with the average of a business being just shy of 11 years. There are approximately 100 large businesses with a headcount over 35 employees, constituting 68% of the jobs in the area, and approximately 1,350 businesses with 2 to 35 employees. Commercial sales volume has declined dramatically in 2022, with only 2 major commercial sales in the first 2 quarters: the Pavilion Building in December to Texas-based Hines, and the Westin San Jose in January to Kana Enterprises. During the pandemic, downtown has averaged office leasing activity of roughly 70,000 square feet per quarter. In the 2 years prior to the pandemic, the average was roughly 230,000 square feet per quarter. The downtown vacancy rate at the end of the first quarter of 2022 stood at 19.4%. That's up from 16.7% a year prior and 12.8% prior to the onset of the pandemic. However, asking rents have remained relatively stable as landlords seek to maintain market stability. Properties were asking an average of about $4.36 per square foot per month in Q1 of 2022, with little change from the $4.42 it was a year earlier. 3 notable leases this past year were Poly, Raymond James Financial, and cryptocurrency exchange OKCoin, taking a total of 73,000 square feet in the city center. And just last month, very exciting news that we got that Hillbrook School in Los Gatos announced they would be establishing their new high school campus downtown in the 1894 Moore Building and the Armory. Oh, thanks. Okay. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic appears to have some impact on downtown's long-term future, as only 2.4 million square feet of office space is under planning review, down from 5.2 million in last year's report. The city approved entitlements for 4.4 million square feet of office, down from 5.1 million in my last report. Commercial development under construction includes Adobe's 4th tower, as well as Boston Properties Platform 16 that resumed construction in February. Also now under construction is West Bank's Park Habitat project on Park Avenue, which includes, of course, the 60,000 square foot expansion of the Tech Interactive, which is very exciting for downtown. Rising interest rates on construction loans seem to have dampened construction starts as a number of projects have been moving forward with permits, but are slow to actually start construction. Some of the exciting office rehabs that we have downtown are actually with older buildings that are creatively being repurposed. So J. Paul Company's 1 West Santa Clara and Divco's 2 West Santa Clara were completed at the corner of First and Santa Clara streets since my last report. On the other hand, on the other 2 corners of First and Santa Clara, Bowen Capital has completed interior demolition at 50 East Santa Clara, and the Bank of Italy will thankfully resume construction in the coming months. Urban Catalyst conversion of the former Camera 12 cinemas building into creative office space along the Paseo is also well underway. Good news is that we've got 3 out of the 4 ground leases in the project announced. We're going to have miniature golf, axe throwing, and of course, a place for you to get good food and drink along the Paseo. And so hopefully these announcements are going to make leasing that 65,000 square feet of creative office above very enticing. On the commercial development front, here's a look at some of the projects that comprise the 4.4 million square feet in entitlements this year. We have Boston Properties and KT Urban's developments at Almaden Boulevard and Waz Way, and West Bank's Arbor project in the North San Pedro area. As previously mentioned, construction is currently underway on 2.6 million square feet of office and 113,000 square feet of retail space. Approximately 850,000 square feet of this space is J. Paul Company's 200 Park Avenue project, shown in the upper right-hand corner of this slide. So now on to urban living. In order to realize its true potential as an active and vibrant downtown core, downtown must attract significantly more residents and provide more housing at varying income levels. Never was this more evident than during the pandemic, when residents stayed close to their neighborhoods for meals and the fulfillment of daily needs. There are approximately 23,000 residents living within the boundaries of the downtown growth area, where the median household income is $113,000. This is compared to approximately $117,000 for the city overall. Since July of 2021, 1,522 units have been completed. This total includes 188 West St. James in San Pedro, Hanover Dearden in downtown West, and Miro right across the street from City Hall. 66% of the Miro development's East Tower is currently leased, and 105 units of the project's West Tower are earmarked for the Y Hotel by Placemaker project. Still under construction are 130 units in the Firestone project in downtown Sofa District, scheduled for completion later this year, as well as the 87-unit affordable housing project Aria on Ballback Street. And for those of us working at home these past 2 years, we didn't really get to experience the full effect of construction across the city. So here it is for you now. We've got a time-lapse video of the Miro construction. So hopefully that's going to go. Disconnected us.
It didn't
Are we
show the
back?
boat in the
back.
water.
I think we left for a second. Okay, so here you go. Here's 3 years worth of construction coming at you right across the street from City Hall. Well, we were at home, they were busy at work. This definitely goes a little bit slower when you're showing your screen than it does in real time, but there you go. So 3 years of construction just like that. Okay, so if we could have the next slide. One more, no? Yes. My internet connected. It says my internet. Okay. So if we can have shopping and dining. Okay, Perfect. I guess I'm just not seeing it. Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties. So on shopping and dining, while downtown continues to build toward commercial and residential densities that will support more shopping activity, the number of downtown dining options remains substantial, and the general outlook of restaurateurs in downtown is cautiously optimistic. Although weekday business continues to lag, specifically or significantly, evening and weekend business for many establishments is approaching pre-pandemic levels. The SJ Alfresco initiative, which enabled businesses to extend their business operations outdoors, continued to give much needed help to downtown restaurants, as many customers are still hesitant and remain hesitant to eat indoors. At its height, more than 30 downtown businesses participated in the initiative. And at this point, staff is working to transition all of the businesses with temporary alfresco operations to permanent ones. In the memo that's posted for today's meeting, there was a page and a half of comings and goings, mostly comings, downtown since last year's report. This slide illustrates just a handful, I think the one previous, the shopping and dining slide, illustrates just a handful of the businesses that have opened in downtown over the last year. In FY 21-22, 7 out of 36 storefront assistance grants were awarded to downtown businesses totaling $75,000. Under the stewardship of the Office of Cultural Affairs Public Art Program, downtown was enhanced by 2 new permanent art installations over the year, Sonic Runway and San Jose Walls. Sonic Runway, the light art sound installation, returned to City Hall Plaza in November. And in partnership with the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy and San Jose Walls, 10 new mural installations by local artists were installed along the Guadalupe River Trail. One of the 3 art installations completed by the San Jose Downtown Association includes a revamp of the Hella Gardens vacant storefront installations along Market, Santa Clara, and 2nd Streets. An example of this artwork can be seen in the photo in the top right-hand corner of the screen. So outdoor special events made a really strong comeback in mid to late 2021 with the return of familiar events that you see listed here. Over 1.7 million attended 73 events held in the city center. And based on information that we gathered from our mobility intelligence partner City Data, there was 4 times more cumulative visits downtown in December of 2021 versus December of 2020, as some sense of normalcy returned for the holidays. The production of Downtown Ice, Christmas in the Park, and Winter Wonderland occurred once again. And downtown once again hosted the Light the Holiday Nights initiative, which featured creative and intricate video projection on St. Joseph's Cathedral. In 2021, Viva Parks downtown produced a total of 163 midday and evening activations in both Plaza Park and St. James Park. And we can look forward to 122 more activations in the 2022 season. And coming soon is West Bank's Serpentine Event Pavilion, opening in September. And that is going to house over 300 events in the SoFa neighborhood over the next 6 to 8 months. And last but certainly not least, the Convention Center and Team San Jose managed theaters welcome patrons back, bringing over $30 million in direct visitor spending to downtown businesses, a significant first step back in the long, long road to recovery. In the public realm, actually, if you could go back one slide. Yeah, thank you. In the public realm, the downtown P-bid was renewed again for 10 years on June 14th, certainly something that is near and dear to my heart, with property owners representing almost 90% of the assessed value of the district, voting to assess themselves for enhanced services. Renewal of the district includes expansion into downtown west, along East Santa Clara Street, and into downtown's North San Pedro area. Increased groundworks, service delivery capacity, and the creation of a social impact team that will focus on building trust with downtown's unsheltered population. Downtown residents and businesses can access PATH, the city's downtown service provider, outreach service provider. PATH's team of essential workers served 493 individuals experiencing homelessness over the past 12 months and offered 4,000 unique sessions of mobile case management, which was a 50% increase. Actually, it was a 100% increase over the case management that they had in 2020, 2021. PATH helped 119 people move from the street into temporary shelter, and 56 people move from the streets into permanent homes. I'm very proud to say that in 2022, the city has been able to expand its agreement with PATH, enabling them to incorporate additional specialists to enhance their service delivery. And that expansion will enable PATH to have outreach providers in the community 7 days a week. Capital design and implementation work continues to ensure that downtown parks are a significant contributor to public life in the city center. The Pellier Park project is nearing completion and should be open for the public use in fall. Design on 2 other public parks in the North San Pedro area is underway, and construction should commence in early 2023. St. James Park redesign is progressing to 65% design, which is very exciting. The Guadalupe River Park Conservancy continues to be a very trusted partner for the operation and management of the Guadalupe River Park. They've put up some pretty significant numbers over the past year. Their partnerships have provided 5,700 additional hours of park service and removed an additional 90 tons of debris. They replanted over 100 new fruit trees and hundreds of roses in the Heritage Rose Garden. The Conservancy engaged 2,000 plus volunteers over the last year and provided free environmental education programs to over 1,000 students in Title I schools. And lastly, after 2 years of work on the downtown transportation plan, staff will bring forward the plan for council consideration in fall of 2022. The plan will propose a prioritized list of transportation projects, programs, and policies designed to improve getting around downtown on foot and by bike, transit, or car. And so that concludes my presentation about downtown progress over the past year. And I'm here and happy to answer any questions that the committee might have. Thank you all very much.
Blage, thank you for that presentation. First, I'll go to the members of the public. Blair Beekman, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for the item. I've been interested how you've been offering downtown economic reporting recently at city council meetings, and I thought that was an interesting idea that talks about economic forecasts for and work needed for 2022 and 23 into 23, and the same with the Japantown area. You've had the same sort of economic reports going on. I think that's an interesting, good beginning to better understand what to really expect in 2023. It's been a little bit difficult for ourselves to really delve into that work, I think. Good luck how we can be doing that. And I think those are the ways to be doing it. And thanks for your time on this item.
Thank you. Next caller is Nate LeBlanc. I'm sorry, Nate LeBlanc. Sorry about that, Nate. Nate, please, there you go.
Good afternoon, committee. Just wanted to chime in very briefly to thank Blage for the very thorough report, for her excellent work, and I must say at this point, tireless work, helping downtown have a voice throughout the city and inside City Hall, and just to say that this report is a great resource for us, and that we're very happy to contribute a little bit of information about business comings and goings, and just really appreciate all the hard work that goes into this. And it's really interesting to note that we are very much still in the recovery mode, but there are little moments of kind of brightness and progress tucked in there that I know we will use to kind of further downtown's narrative and Just again, want to thank, and I probably should have introduced myself. Sorry for my problems unmuting. I'm Nate LeBlanc, Business Development Manager, San Jose Downtown Association, and apologies for not doing that at the beginning, and thank you very much for the work.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands raised, I'll turn to the committee. Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the thanks to Blage on the report, and congratulations as well, Blage as well. You've done a lot of great work in and around downtown and now for the city, and you'll be a terrific asset for us as you continue to advance in your career. I know that certainly downtown has struggled over the last couple of years through the pandemic. We know that when we see these reports, but there are, I think, a lot of bright spots, and there's certainly some light at the end of the tunnel there. And I know that as we've seen some of the development continue, new businesses open, it's been exciting to get that little glimmer of hope, especially the biggest thing, I think, is the residents, new residents in the downtown, as you pointed out, Blage, is really making all the difference and going to make all the difference. And so excited about that, and look forward to the future of what downtown has to hold. I know I'm looking forward to some of these new businesses opening, certainly things like mini golf, taking the family to, and maybe not yet the axe throwing for the kids, but excited about that, about these opportunities here coming in downtown, and I'll move to accept the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Carrasco.
Thank
You're
you.
next.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to echo the same sentiment and congratulate you, Blage, on all the great work and a great report. You know, after the last few years, it's always nice to see a report like this because not everything is gloom and doom. It was for a couple of years, I guess. And especially for folks who have been struggling for these last, 24-48 months, and it just felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. So, and it's, I don't think it's over, and recovery is still a long ways away, and we don't know what people are still experiencing in their own personal lives. And so to be able to see some positivity and people coming back with new ideas, creativity, repurposing buildings. I think that's always, I mean, that's part of the economy, right? We reinvent ourselves. We do a little jujitsu move, and we hope that it will stick. Lately, I've been taking my kids downtown quite a bit and showing them around, and hoping that they will, just branch out and test the waters as they become young adults. And they really love it. They love the art that's blooming, and the new restaurants and all the fun stuff that's happening. I did want to ask you a couple of things. One is, are we, especially with your new role, I would love to see some of these reports in some of the other corridors. And of course, I hope you know where I'm going with this, with all of the activity that's happening down Alum Rock, activity and inactivity, right? But there's developments are coming in, people that are developers are putting in applications, or that they're exploring the idea and looking at sites. Different businesses are looking at places. We've got the flea market vendors who are looking at brick and mortar. We have Jesus Flores out there. We have Mimi out there. We just have a lot of activity and people reinventing themselves as well. I'd like to be able to see on the horizon an opportunity to have a baseline, as well as an opportunity to see what could be and what is happening, and whether or not we're making any progress, especially down Alum Rock Corridor, King and Story, Tropicana, with our Vietnamese community and the businesses, and whether they're faring just as well as what we're seeing in the downtown corridors and in the PBIDs. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Sure. So thank you, Councilmember, for that question. I think certainly we have we have reported on some of those things, but they're a little bit more disparate than this downtown progress report, right? Because this is one very specific geography with very specific boundaries. So I think as we move forward, we do have, as you know, out of your advocacy position that's coming into the business development team that is going to be working and focused on the east side, in addition to all of our other business development team members. I think we'll be able to probably put together a report that's similar to this for that geography of the city. And that's something that we've been talking about and something that we're going to be talking about as we move forward. So definitely understand where your point is coming from and where your perspective is coming from. And we're going to be looking to do what we can to bring the highlights of other areas that we're working on more specifically to committee.
Yeah, I think that would be great because you know, it allows us to see where the gaps are and how to better support our businesses, those that are being challenged, and also to celebrate the successes of those that are faring well and that are succeeding in light of all of this. And then if you could give me an understanding of the funding that went into the downtown, and you know, as we're looking at how it was dispersed and why that kind of funding went into such a concentrated area. Was it just that they were able to navigate and access the funding more so than other areas in the city? Or was the need greater in that area? I'm just trying to understand why the funding was more concentrated in these 3 zip codes.
Councilmember, can you clarify for me which source of funding you're talking about? Are you talking about the PPP loans?
Yeah, the $668 million.
So one of the reasons why is that there were a significant amount of larger businesses in the downtown. And so we saw with that funding that the businesses that had a larger number of employees did fare better kind of citywide in most instances. And that's why we actually, when we had our, and as we currently are doing, we had our grant programs that were established by the city. We decided that we wanted to focus on businesses that were less than 10 employees because we saw that, you know, citywide and especially in certain zip codes, those businesses didn't receive the large amount of assistance that the larger businesses did. I think the other thing that we saw was that the folks typically in the larger businesses, larger number of employees, were a little bit more savvy in, you know, connecting and filling out their applications, being able to follow up and ensure that they had the resources and the appropriate ways to connect. And so I think that's also something that we found in our work. There was a much more hands-on work that was needed when some of the small business owners didn't have connections like internet connections or resources to be able to apply online. It was oftentimes very frustrating because the fluidity of the process wasn't there. And so, you know, a lot of lessons learned, but the bottom line is we wanted to take those lessons and make sure that as we are implementing and did implement grants for businesses in the city, we were looking at the section of the population that wasn't served as broadly with the PPP loans.
So are you saying that the ones that got the $668 million that is in the report, that went primarily to smaller businesses?
No, I'm saying that actually it went to the larger businesses, right? So you could see across the city, the larger percentage or the largest percentage of businesses that receive the PPP are the ones with the larger number of employees.
Right.
The smaller businesses with the, you know, kind of the 2 to 10 range that didn't fare as well citywide. And so what we really tried to do when implementing the city grant programs was to very much focus on that sector of the
Yeah.
business demographic.
Yeah.
Sorry for being unclear on that.
Yeah. And so that brings me to another question as I'm thinking of how to further support some of these businesses. And I don't know, in terms of data, still how the smaller businesses are doing. The only thing I can tell you is anecdotally how some of them are doing. And so some are doing really well, some are still not, it's a hit and miss. And that's why I was saying is I think that it's going to be very helpful getting a business manager in there and, really working with some of these folks and getting some real data points, on a chart somewhere and really being able to look at this across a timeline so that we really have an understanding and be able to support the businesses and fill in those gaps. Because I don't know, I just know stories. And so, and I think that'll give us an indication as to what we're going to have to do over the next couple of years while some of the businesses are still recovering. We have a much better understanding of what's happening downtown, but we don't know how some of the businesses are doing, outside of the downtown area, and that's the greater concern that I have right now, because these are those small businesses that haven't had this kind of attention. They haven't had a business manager. They haven't had a cohesive, coordinated marketing plan. They haven't had necessarily business associations, translation associations. San Jose, hasn't necessarily, funneled tourism, in their direction. And so we need to see what are the gaps and how best to support them when they're living outside of downtown. So, I think still a lot of work left to be done, but I'm glad that downtown is doing so much better, and now the work needs to be done outside of the downtown area.
Councilmember
Did you want to jump in for just a second?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair Foley. Thank you so much, Councilmember Carrasco. We couldn't agree with you more, and just wanted to share with you, and we'd be happy to set up a meeting with you offline to discuss in more detail. But as part of the COVID-19 Recovery Task Force, they have formed a small business committee. And because they're hearing a lot of the same information that you are, and so they're very focused on coming up, well, first of all, just getting more information from small businesses in those zip codes who have been impacted most by COVID-19. So they're conducting a lot of engagement over the summer months as they look to draft their recommendations, which will be presented to council later this fall. So we'd be happy to set up something with you to go into more detail.
That's great, and of course I'll only be here 6 more months, and I'm glad that this council and the mayor approved the business manager for the east side, and I know that's going to take a while to get up and running, but I think that individual is going to be instrumental in making sure that that there is a real cohesive voice in supporting those businesses. So integrating that person with the task force and with all of you good folks in supporting those businesses, and really having a cultural nuance as well is going to be just real key to all of this. Okay, that's it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy, you had your hand raised. Did you want to jump in?
No, thank you. I can leave it at that so we can get to the other items. Appreciate that.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know this report was focused on downtown, but I do share Councilmember Carrasco's concern about small businesses all over the city. It's not just downtown that's struggling. All of our small businesses are struggling. As someone who owns one, I can speak to that. We're in the mortgage business, and depending on what cycle you're in, it's a great business or it's a struggling business. With that, let's take a vote.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Perez,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Next report is on the foreign trade zones and sister city program. And I have to say, before I introduce Joe, that I didn't know until I was a brand new council member that we even had a foreign trade zone until this came up in a council meeting. So we haven't had this presentation here. I'm happy to see what the foreign trade zones are up to. So Joe Hedges, I think you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Foley, and good afternoon, council members. Joe Hedges, International Affairs Manager, Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. Today's presentation is to provide the committee an update of two city programs, the Foreign Trade Zone and Sister Cities. The Foreign Trade Zone and Sister Cities are included as part of the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs International Programs portfolio. The City of San Jose is the grantee of Foreign Trade Zone 18. The Foreign Trade Zone is a federal program which was established by the U.S. Congress in 1934 to foster U.S. trade and commerce. The initial foreign trade zones were largely seaports, the large seaports in the United States. In 1974, the city applied and was approved for Foreign Trade Zone 18. So the City of San Jose was the 18th foreign trade zone created in the United States. And today there are nearly 300 foreign trade zones nationwide. The City of San Jose administers the foreign trade zone as a public benefit for the region economy to grow, to support jobs, manufacturing, and trade. The two key federal partners for the city in administering the foreign trade zone is the U.S. Department of Commerce Foreign Trade Zones Board and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. A foreign trade zone is a site that is considered to be outside of the United States for U.S. Customs purposes. So a foreign trade zone is considered to be in international commerce. Foreign merchandise that is admitted into a foreign trade zone has not entered U.S. Customs territory. And so no duties are paid at the time that the entry is made into the foreign trade zone. Foreign duties to the federal government are paid at the time the merchandise enters U.S. Customs territory. But a foreign trade zone allows an individual or a company to delay, reduce, or eliminate duties on foreign merchandise that is admitted into the foreign trade zone. Typical activities in a foreign trade zone would include storage, testing, repair, assembly, production, and even destruction of the product. The City of San Jose Foreign Trade Zone service area includes all of San Jose and the cities and towns in Santa Clara County. Also Santa Cruz, Scotts Valley, Fremont, Hayward, Newark, and Union City. The service area of a foreign trade zone is also dependent on the area that will be served by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. In 2012, the City of San Jose reorganized our foreign trade zone with the federal government. This allowed for a streamlined application, an expedited review of the application, and for the first time, it made it very possible for small and mid-sized companies to apply to operate their business as a foreign trade zone. Today, there are 9 companies in the greater region that operate their business as a foreign trade zone. As the grantee, the City of San Jose submits the application to the federal government on behalf of the company. So technically, the city is the applicant of the foreign trade zone. Any change to the foreign trade zone, any expansion to a company's foreign trade zone also is the responsibility of the grantee. In 2020 calendar year, the San Jose Foreign Trade Zone included between $10 and $25 billion in merchandise received. The exports range from $5 to $10 billion. And there were over 25,000 individuals employed in the foreign trade zone. There are 17 foreign trade zones in the state of California. The city ranked second in the state among all foreign trade zones in merchandise received after Los Angeles. And the San Jose Foreign Trade Zone ranked first in the state in both exports and number of individuals employed in the foreign trade zone. There are many benefits to operating as a foreign trade zone. First and foremost is the financial savings. Companies are able to save money by operating as a foreign trade zone, particularly if that company exports a great deal, because they are able to avoid paying federal duties on the imported merchandise that enters their foreign trade zone. It also brings operational efficiencies to the company. The foreign trade zone supports employment, the manufacturing sector, and also US exports. Many foreign trade zone operators are foreign-owned companies that have made investments in the United States. So the foreign trade zone is a key reason for many companies investing in the United States and creating jobs. The bottom line is that the foreign trade zone enhances the global competitiveness of companies that are operating in the United States. The foreign trade zone also provides a great deal of flexibility to companies, particularly in a time of trade uncertainty when products may be subject to tariffs or further trade action. As we approach the new fiscal year, we are seeking to continue the expansion of the foreign trade zone and engage with our current foreign trade zone operators on their expansion needs, as well as companies that we believe could enhance their operations in California and San Jose by operating as a foreign trade zone. The second program that I would like to briefly share with you is the Sister Cities program. This, of course, is a national program that was established in part following a White House conference on citizen diplomacy, which was chaired at the White House in 1956 by President Dwight Eisenhower. San Jose became a charter member of the National Sister Cities program. And in fact, the San Jose Okayama Sister City relationship, which was approved by the City Council in 1957, was the third sister city relationship established between a US and international city. And in fact, a sister city affiliation is an official city-to-city relationship between a US city and an international city. And this is a program that encourages participation by community members as citizen diplomats and collaboration and exchanges in many different programs such as education, the arts, economic development, sport, civic affairs, and other community programs. San Jose has 8 sister cities. And in the last 2 years, many of our community sister city organizations faced unique challenges in that they were not able to gather as they would typically do. And also many community programs were curtailed during the pandemic. But during the past year, many of the sister city programs have re-engaged and they've organized events in the community, such as the scholarship program, both secondary and higher education exchanges, and also humanitarian efforts during the course of the pandemic. And so the sister city organizations will be organizing further events in the latter part of 2022 and moving into 2023. So with that, I would like to pause and answer any questions the committee members may have on the foreign trade zone and the Sister Cities program.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that presentation. I'll first turn to members of the public. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, I do. Blair? Go ahead.
Hi, Blair here. Thanks a lot for this item. It's really important that I think with these efforts, thank you that you've made it a council agenda item, a committee agenda item. As the public, we all need to understand that we're working towards ideas of peace here in the US and in local communities of the US. I think we kind of have an obligation to keep those channels open and communicative. And boy, I mean, I think we can teach a lot to what is going on in the Ukraine area at this time, simply about ideas of peace and good communication that can work much better than the use of war and brawn and muscle as how to prove their points. I just really think it's a negotiated process. It's so important at this time that thank you very much for this item and continue good luck on this sort of efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning back to the committee, I don't see any hands raised, but I will just make a comment about the Sister City program. I think it's an excellent program, and through the Okayama Sister City program, we used to do an exchange with middle school kids, and I was happy to host one or two a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic. Always a good opportunity to exchange ideas and build peace and collaboration across the world. With that, do if there's no committee members with questions, would someone care to make a motion to accept the report?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Then let's vote.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Morales,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next report is on Development Fee Framework Study Status Report. Jared Ferguson, I understand you're making this presentation.
That's right. Good afternoon, council members. Jared Ferguson, Housing Catalyst with the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs, here today to provide you with the status report on the Development Fee Framework. On March 5th, 2019, the City Council added the Universal Development Fee to the Council priority list. This item directed staff to explore creating a universal fee for residential development that contained all current fees and taxes. The main purpose was to provide the public and developers a transparent view of fees and taxes and their calculation. In November of 2019, staff provided a report to the City Council on the Universal Development Fee. At this report, staff recommended pursuing a development fee framework rather than a universal development fee. The development fee framework would align the existing major development fees and taxes around shared guidelines rather than developing a new singular or universal fee. While it's possible to develop a universal fee, undertaking creating a single fee would be an extremely resource-intensive process and might also present legal challenges. At this time, staff also received direction from council that the outcome of the framework should not result in any increase or decrease to existing fees. In March of 2020, a report to the Community and Economic Development Committee was scheduled, but the hearing was canceled due to the onset of the pandemic. The planned report was later released as an information memo. In February of 2021, staff provided an update to the CED committee. The work completed at that point was the adoption of new geographic areas by the City Council for the inclusionary housing ordinance that would also serve as the geographic areas for the framework. The concept for the universal development fee that later became the development fee framework grew out of the work in the housing crisis work plan, especially the report on the cost of residential development. The report gave a holistic view of the city's fees and taxes and how they factor into the feasibility of residential development projects. It also brought to light the structural challenges within the city's major residential development fees and taxes. These structural differences can make it difficult to compare the fees and taxes together to understand the true impact on a housing development. Charging on a per unit basis in some cases and a per square foot basis in other cases is one example of this. Also in the past, new fees and fee increases or other changes were often considered independently of each other. This further adds to the challenge of understanding the impact. Developers generally look at financial feasibility at multiple points in the entitlement and development process. The earlier in the process that fees and costs can be understood, makes it easier for a developer to account and plan for costs, and easier for them to make a decision of whether or not to invest in the city. The framework is not proposing changes to fee amounts, but is intended to help facilitate housing production by improving transparency and predictability. Through the work in the cost of development report, we understand that these three taxes and fees represent from about 60 to 80% of the total city's fees and costs added to a residential development and have been the focus of the framework. These three are the inclusionary housing ordinance, the parkland dedication and park impact ordinances, and construction taxes. The framework is also intended to guide any consideration of any new fees. The work to date on the framework has identified 4 common elements that are intended to align the structure and administration of the major development fees and taxes. The first is metric of calculation. This is the metric used to assess the fee. For the framework, we have defined this as square feet rather than per unit. Specifically, this is rentable square feet and standardizing our citywide definition of rentable square feet. The next is development geography. This is defining a single geography used in the collection of fees. As I mentioned earlier, these areas have now been defined during the previous update to the inclusionary housing ordinance. The third is timing of payment. This is aligning the time at which fees are paid to the city. Previous council direction also included shifting the timing of payment for residential projects to later in the construction process to help lower the cost of residential development. The last is development typology. And to the extent that typology or construction type is used in our fees, the goal is to align the definitions of typology. High-rise development is an example in this area. So in January of this year, we convened an internal working group of staff from PBCE, Housing, PRNS, and DOT. The purpose of this working group was to help further refine the elements of the framework and determine a path forward. The working group generally meets twice a month and has agreed on several outcomes so far. First, a clear objective for the framework: to simplify the administration and calculation of major residential development fees and taxes to provide transparency and certainty to the public and development community. The group has also identified 2 primary working goals to fully establish the framework. Goal number 1 is the adoption of a formal policy by the City Council to memorialize the framework elements and its parameters. The form of this adoption, whether it's a council policy or other method, hasn't been determined yet, but the outcome would be to provide clear definitions of all the elements in a written policy that's adopted by City Council. Goal number 2 is to develop a web page and other resources that outline the current fee estimates and conditions organized by geography that could be used to evaluate city costs quickly and easily. This goal would help satisfy the transparency and predictability outcomes in the framework objective. The working group has also discussed individual elements of the framework in more detail. Regarding the timing of payment, staff is interested in shifting the timing of payments to the scheduling of final inspection. This puts the collection closer to a project's completion, but at a point that's easier for the city to administer. However, there still are some technical challenges that need to be sorted out to make this approach work. Construction taxes are more complicated than our impact fees. There are currently 4 different construction taxes for residential development. They are collected citywide, and the two most significant of the four are based on building valuation. Formal changes to these taxes can require voter approval. In discussing construction taxes, the working group thought the most feasible approach would be to provide accurate assumptions that could be relied upon by developers as a part of goal number 2, rather than pursuing formal changes to the structure of the taxes themselves. So looking ahead, the working group will continue to meet to accomplish goal number 1, which is to formally adopt the framework. We are estimating a completion of this goal next spring in 2023. We're also recommending that goal number 1 be added to the housing crisis work plan, since this was removed from the city roadmap. Staff is currently working on goal number 2 and developing an impact fee registry, and this work item is already in the housing crisis work plan. The plan update to the report on the cost of development this fall is an additional opportunity to discuss the framework in the context of residential development feasibility. Staff also plans to conduct additional public outreach to receive feedback as the policy is further developed. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Jared, for your report. One thing I'd like to add before we begin public comment is that we will be having a study session on this issue sometime in September, we think on the 13th, connected to a council meeting, but watch for that if you're interested. To my fellow council members, we'll hear more about this in greater detail at the study session. So first, I'll turn to the members of the public. Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. Good luck how we can be addressing the future of stability in housing and its costs. It's kind of like really unpredictable and weird. And if we find ways to bring a stability, you know, I'm for the in lieu fee process and for not changing those sort of issues, to have a constant, steady set of values that what people can expect when they want to build in San Jose. Those are key goals. So good luck how we can do that. I know in the past, land speculation issues and a host of other issues just makes it difficult for yourselves to have a steady understanding of housing prices and how to gauge you know, licenses and fees and stuff. So really good luck with this sort of measure and measures like it, and the importance of you know, a housing developing a housing plan that serves the whole community, that serves people of low and extremely low income who don't need the sort of help the most. And if we have that sort of philosophy and builders understand that when they want to build in San Jose, that's key. I mean, we all have a basic understanding of it, but to really make it an important point in San Jose, good luck how you can do that. And hopefully this is part of those good efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning to members of the committee, I don't see any hands raised. So is there a motion to accept the report?
Motion to accept.
Thank you. And Council.
I'll second. And I just got a brief comments.
Great. Please proceed, Council Member.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, staff, on the work on this, and appreciate the creativity on moving over that priority 1 or outcome 1 over to the housing crisis work plan, just to ensure that as you guys are continuing this work, that stays in our overall work plan for the city, and then look forward to the conversation that we'll have coming up. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Let's vote.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Morales,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
This next item, as I introduce it, it is the Citywide Residential Anti-Displacement Strategy Quarterly Report. I will remind the council and the members of the public that this is a report that we are actually seeing tomorrow in council under item 3.3, and we will be discussing it extensively and then voting on it as a council as a full council. So I'm wondering, because we do have staff here and staff spend a lot of time on the report, but we're going to get a report today and tomorrow. So I'm wondering if the members of the committee would agree to skip the presentation today, go to public comment, and then if we have any questions after that, we can ask questions, but then leave most of our comments and questions for tomorrow, as I'm sure there will be a robust discussion about it tomorrow. Any thoughts from members of the committee on that?
I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, great. Then I want to thank staff. You may want to stick around in case we have questions afterwards, but we'll delay the presentation and look forward to hearing it tomorrow. Thank you, Jackie, for being flexible with that. With that, I'm going to turn to members of the public. Blair? Did you want to speak on this item, Blair?
Hi, thank you. They just unmuted me. Yeah, I did. Thank you that you are offering public comment at this time, that you're going to agendize the meeting, the item for tomorrow, but thank you very much for taking public comment. I think I pretty much said in the previous item, you know, what you know, how we were working on the last item can really be applied to this item. And just to thank you that these items are together, because that is your city government thinking, and thinking well, and is our best, that's our better practices. So thank you for that. I'll look forward to this item tomorrow, and good luck how we can talk about displacement issues and the importance. I feel, if I'm understanding this item correctly, that it has a care about what is the future of extremely low and very low income ideas, and not so much about I don't know. It's finding places a good home and people a good home, and not for people to feel that they're not threatened. And that's a good balance to learn how to do. Good luck how we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning to the committee, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. No questions, I'm assuming. We'll all have them for Jackie tomorrow. So with that, let's vote.
Carrasco,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
And thank you to my fellow council members for allowing me that flexibility. I'm sure staff is completely happy in not having to make the exact same presentation twice or answer the same questions twice. So I really appreciate that we'll be discussing this quite a bit tomorrow and saving the time here. With that, let's move to our last report, which is a presentation on the soft story building earthquake retrofit policy. And I understand Lisa Joyner and Ray Reardon are here to make that presentation.
Yes. Just get it started. Perfect. So good afternoon, Chair Foley and committee members. My name is Lisa Joyner, Deputy Director of the Building Division in PBCE, and I'm joined by Raymond Riordan, Director of the Office of Emergency Management, for a status update on our soft story retrofit policy. So a little bit of background. So what is a soft story building? It's an existing wood frame multi-unit residential building of 2 or more stories that contain 5 or more dwelling units, and the ground floor contains parking, large windows or garage doors, or other similar openings that cause soft, weak, or open front wall lines. Some examples are in the pictures you can see. And why are we concerned about soft story buildings? Due to the open nature of the lower level walls, that level of the building is less able to resist an earthquake than the stories above. As we saw during the 1994 Northridge earthquake, these buildings have a greater than average risk of collapsing during an earthquake, displacing and possibly physically endangering residents. So now I'll turn it over to Ray for some specific timeline information.
Thank you, Lisa. Ray Reardon, Director of the Office of Emergency Management. Since 2014, the City Council and city staff have been wanting to address the damage that soft story structures could experience in an earthquake by creating an incentive program. After staff researched funding sources, other soft story programs in the area, in 2017, the council identified soft story threat as the 8th priority. In 2018, FEMA announced funding opportunities using the federal hazard mitigation resources. The Housing Department brought this to City Council for approval. The application was submitted to Cal OES, and in turn, the application was forwarded to FEMA, and within a year, they had it in their hands to review. Unfortunately, during 2019 and 2020, both the state of California and FEMA experienced a significant number of emergencies and had to delay response and approval until 2021. In April 2021, FEMA requested the application be split into 2 projects. Phase 1 would be the development of the program, and Phase 2 would be implementation. The city resubmitted a revision in June to FEMA, and by September 2021, Phase 1 was approved. Since that approval, staff had to research the nuance of the federal RFP process, which are quite different than the city procurement rules. And the programs were researched to be sure the RFP met the needs of our local program. The draft RFPs were developed. And Phase 1 is a total of $1.5 million with a $480,000 match by the city. There are 4 primary parts to Phase 1. While an inventory of the soft story buildings in the past was created, the data was lost and no longer available. FEMA requires precise location of where the funding is targeting, which will require an accounting of where the soft stories are located. In addition, FEMA hazard mitigation grants require modifications to local building code to ensure no additional soft stories are built, and a policy on how the soft story program would be implemented. From some summary reports, 2 facts are known. We have about 1,100 structures that are soft stories, and our low-income residents occupy most of these units. The policy or ordinance will include what the mandatory and voluntary measures are, and to do this, we'll collect public input to ensure engagement with the landlords to understand the program, what we're addressing, and the financial programs that could be available. Based on the different types of soft story programs, how to approach each type will be presented to FEMA through a pilot program. After that approval through FEMA, a second phase will initiate, which is a $3.5 million project with a $770,000 match from the city. And Phase 2 will include that implementation. To make that work, there will be a significant effort in Phase 1 to identify potential financial support programs to assist, including the use of additional FEMA grants if they're available. The financing issues will be our trickiest spot to make sure that the landlords and the facilities can afford these. The application of the soft story fixes will allow residents to remain in their homes, so they will not need to vacate the homes while these applications are being done. So those are 2 critical things about Phase 1. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa. Lisa, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. So since the Phase 1 grant award, as Ray mentioned, we've been working on the RFP to obtain the consultant that will complete much of the Phase 1 work, and this was launched in this past April 2022. We've also identified a staff member within our planning department that meets FEMA's requirements for historic and environmental reviews, which will help us streamline the future review process with FEMA as we move into the process of actual building retrofits. In May, the RFP closed and the respondents were evaluated, and this month, the oral interviews were conducted with the finalists and the consultant was selected. So the next steps, if we go to the next slide, please. So the next steps are we are returning to council August 9th with a memo to approve the proposed consultant so they can start the Phase 1 work. And we anticipate returning to council in the winter to discuss and approve the soft story seismic retrofit ordinance. And I just want to stress that once the Phase 1 work is complete, Phase 2 construction can start immediately. Another hazard mitigation grant program application is not required to be submitted to move on to the next phase. So this ends our presentation and we're available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Turning to members of the public, Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. For this item, thank you. Jackie Morales-Friend has been working on the concepts of subsidy for earthquake retrofit since way back 2014 and 15. I wasn't looked upon too well at the time, but I think over the years, I think it's proving to be a really interesting concept for ourselves in that it really can be of help to owners of buildings and as ways that can eventually bring savings to tenants themselves. And it's an interesting way to work that I think can be better respected as part of the overall subsidy process we're better understanding and learning about at this time in this new era of COVID. You have a couple items on today's agenda, the anti-displacement and the first item about COVID issues and its subsidy process and rent forgiveness ideas that thank you for all your efforts of how we're talking about subsidy and just the fact that hopefully we're growing more comfortable with the concept of subsidy and how it can be shared between each other. And that's the important battle, is that if we share what's available at this time as government with everyday community, they can better understand what their choices can be and to make a more comfortable understanding situation for all of us. That's key. I mean, we get caught up in the superstition and the fears of it. Good luck how we're talking through that and working that out and working out the latest issues of COVID rent forgiveness ideas. Good luck how we're doing all of that. Thanks a lot for this sort of item.
Thank you. Turning to the committee, anyone have any questions? If not, I have actually a couple of, Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, sorry, no questions. Just thank you for the work on this. I grew up living in one of these soft story buildings, initially right above it and then in the front unit. But always was scratching my head how the building itself managed to stand, and we park our cars in the carport area under those units. And there were times where if you bump into that pole, you literally see kind of the building move a little bit, and I could just imagine, obviously, right, the challenges that we'd have if we had the major earthquake, or when we had the major earthquake, if we don't get a number of these units converted ahead of time. So hopefully we can move quickly enough. I know Councilmember Jones, that's where I grew up, D1, and he's always stressed, as he has so many of these throughout his district. And so just looking forward to this work continuing. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Would you like to make a motion to accept the report?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Great, thank you. I do have a couple of questions. Thank you for the report. We've been waiting to get this information and see where we stand in relation to the soft stories, and we know we need to take care of that because it is a high risk for earthquakes, and earthquakes are not as predictable, but we know they're coming. We know one will happen and it could destroy a lot of those buildings. A lot of them are in Alviso as well, and so there's design issues all over the city that's a huge issue. But I'm curious about the 1.9 million grant, Ray. What is that intended to be used for? Is that just to establish the program and the consultant, or is that to assist property owners in retrofitting their buildings?
So the 1.5, which is the phase 1 grant, that's for developing the program, the ordinance, the concepts, the drawings, the assessing the various type, inventorying the buildings, because there's different types of soft story buildings and different applications that'll address how the structure works. So it's designing them and then implementing them in at least 5 buildings so that we have proof that it works, showing to FEMA. And then the next phase, phase 2 is a $3.5 million project, and that's primarily to the application of putting these soft story structure installations into place.
Okay. Do we have I know that this is just throwing this out there. Do we have any idea what the average cost of retrofitting on an average building might be in the city of San Jose? Do you have any feel for that?
Lisa, do you have, is there any information we have?
I see Kip is unmuted as well.
Oh,
No, go ahead. I'll let the people actually know more about this speak first. I would just say we don't. That's part of the reason to do the study, which is, again, as Ray described, there's probably about a number of topologies that we want to identify the most common buildings. We want to understand what the most cost-effective designs are for those buildings, and then go through the process of actually constructing them. And after that, then we'll have 5 samples that will give us a sense of what the actual costs are. And then we can therefore then, in an iterative fashion, design the implementation based on that information. Some of these improvements are relatively straightforward, but I'm always hesitant to do any estimates or to say how easy something is until we've actually done it. As anybody who's retrofitted an old building knows that these things can be much more complicated than they appear. So that's a lot of the intent of phase 1, is to give us a good handle on what the costs will really be, and then to begin to develop a strategy for how we would both mandate that and try to absorb some of those costs, or help people absorb some of those costs in the most appropriate way.
and of course, we know how the costs of construction have gone up in the last 2 years, so.
Yeah, and I think it's been a year since that large apartment or condo building in Florida collapsed due to some faulty construction. It wasn't a soft story building, I don't believe, but that could certainly happen here in the case of an earthquake. The building collapses and a lot of people lose their lives who were not able to get out of the building quick enough. So we have to move as quickly as we can. And I understand the obstacles that we've been under, but it is something we need to do and try to figure out a way to help our community as much as possible to make their property safe. But another question I had, Ray, is that you mentioned that occupants don't need to relocate. I would guess that's in most cases, because I imagine there might be some cases where the building needs to be lifted up, a different type of foundation installed, and then the building put back down. But I don't know. I guess you'll figure that out during the consultant phase in the analysis.
Right, it's our hope, and the projects we've seen around the Bay Area, they did not need to vacate the building, but of course, as we're going to do through the process, is look at the appropriate retrofit for the appropriate building, and that will determine if anybody does need to vacate.
And one of the interesting things, and this is venturing out far beyond my area of expertise, but one of the interesting things that we did learn in the research was that, you know, it's actually the difference in hardnesses between the lower story and the upper story which are most problematic, because in the case of an earthquake, they start swinging at different frequencies, and it's that different frequency that causes it. So some of the retrofit is simply to stiffen it up to a similar level so that it'll still sway like any building will in an earthquake, but it will sway in a way that's in harmonics. So it's not necessarily, even though it may look a little scary that the foundation is inadequate as such, it's that it's structured in a way that doesn't correspond well in the case of an earthquake with the upper story. So again, all the research we'll be doing with people who know far more about it than I do, but most of what we've seen is it doesn't require a lifting up of the whole building or a new foundation, much like the work that's done on these slip story buildings, these that you may be familiar with, these sort of 1920 buildings that have aren't really attached well to the foundation. You go in and you just attach them the right way to the foundation, and you can be in there while that work is being done. But we'll learn more as we do the actual work. But our hope is that we would not have to relocate many people during this process, or any at all, hopefully.
Yeah, I appreciate the swaying back and forth. The buildings also can jump off the foundations. I actually have experience with that. I actually lost a house that was cantilevered over the side of a hill, and so it did. In a way, it was a soft story too, because it didn't really have a strong foundation to the ground, but it literally jumped up in '89, fell down the side of the hill, and that was the end of that. So earthquakes scare me a lot, having lived through one and survived one, but it's something we need to take care of, and that was just, you know, us, and thankfully my husband got out okay. But in a big building, we don't have that flexibility or that ability to move people out quickly during an earthquake. Okay, enough of the personal story. With that, I appreciate the answers to the questions, and I appreciate the study, and look forward to seeing the ordinance and seeing how things come forward as you look at the 5 buildings and what needs to be done to stabilize those. With that, let's vote.
Roscoe,
Councilmember, I'm sorry, Yasmin. Councilmember Perales, you still have your hand raised. Did you have any other questions?
I'm sorry, no, that was from before.
Okay, no worries. All right, now let's vote. Thank you.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Morales,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So concludes our meeting. Very efficient. I will turn to public comment. Blair Beekman.
Hi, thanks. Blair Beekman here. Thanks for the meeting today. It's the end of June. Heading home, heading toward a great vacation, summer vacation, good vacation. Yeah, I in early June, I wrote a letter to yourselves. Hopefully it made the public record. I didn't check to make sure, but, and I also spoke on it last week, tried to write a few words about the subject. You know, with the election that, you know, this previous primary election that just happened, it's sort of a mandate that people are kind of tired of current ways that we can work towards ideas of reimagine at this time, and they kind of wanted to be steady and hold the course. I think I made it a personal point that, you know, there is a set of ways that we can be looking at things that we're going to have to be continuing to address, and that we will be continuing to address in our future, that I just wanted to prepare yourselves for, and that we have to be thinking of these things and what can be our better practices and our better human selves. And just a good luck to ourselves in those efforts of, you know, we really are trying to address issues of peace and not war. And how do we do that in our local communities? How do we address the future to lessen the future of the prison military industrial complex of this country? I think it's a noble task that I hope that we're all wanting to address. And it's that sort of efforts as a full community process. That's how we can address crime. That's what we need to say to ourselves. And that, I think, will get people interested in what we could be doing. And good luck in those sort of efforts from all of us. And yeah, it's those sort of good practices that create the guidelines for the future of law enforcement and surveillance. Thank you.
With that, so concludes our meeting. I would like to thank staff and my fellow council members. I'll see many of you tomorrow, but have those who I don't, have a wonderful July. See you in August.
Thank you.